Are you redundant or likely to be made redundant? As a very experienced employment lawyer, here are my top 10 tips on what you should do. Tip number 1 is be positive. Although you can't control whether you stay or whether you go, you can control your presentation to the world and to your family, who are in even less control than you are. It is not easy. Most of us are not very good with uncertainty. But do your best to stay positive. Channel your energy not into anger and anxiety, but into your future. The past, as L.P. Hartley said, is another country, and soon your employer will be history. Tip number 2 is create a plan. Know yourself. What do you want to do? You may be focused, or you may want to explore a variety of options. Either way, you need an action plan. Getting a job is a full-time job. If you need help on this, and most of us do, there are lots of books, or you may want to explore specialist outplacement guidance. Tip number 3 is to be selfish. Your employer doesn't want you. Use some of the time left with your employer to start implementing your plan by networking and applying for jobs. You're legally entitled to reasonable paid time to do this. Let the world know that you're available. You've got to sell yourself. The more people who know you're available, the better your prospects. My tip number 4 is to get networking. Most jobs are not advertised, although this is less true of the public and not-for-profit sectors. Talk to everyone. Don't ask for a job, which is threatening, but ask for advice. Most people love being asked for advice. Tip number 5 is keep notes. Dismissal procedures are adversarial in nature. Keep letters and emails and make notes of what your employer is saying inside and outside meetings. You may have a legal claim. If so, you need documentary evidence, including even tapes and videos, to support your story. You have a right to be accompanied at dismissal meetings and appeal meetings. I'm not suggesting you're discourteous or aggressive or adversarial unless on advice that is a sensible tactic. Your employer is likely to make more mistakes if you keep smiling, and you may get a better deal if relationships don't break down. Tip number 6, don't expect your employer to change his mind. Any employer worth his salt decides at the outset who will stay and who will go. But the law requires employers to pretend that they haven't decided during consultation. Most consultation is a sham. Unless you're prepared to take a pay cut or go part-time, your employer is most unlikely to change his mind. But if you've got to go, redundancy is the best label. Tip number 7 is for you to check that your employer is jumping through the correct 5 legal hoops. Number 1, there must be a genuine redundancy. Your employer must genuinely have a reduced need for staff. 2, if there's a pool of redundant jobs, selection within that pool must be fair and objective, and you should be consulted about the selection criteria and particularly your own scores. 3, there must be consultation with you. This involves a consultation meeting, a dismissal meeting and a right of appeal. 4, your employer must consider with you scope for alternative employment. Most often there is not. And 5, if there are proposed 20 or more redundancies at one establishment within a period of 90 days, there must be consultation by your employer with a recognised trade union or elected employee representatives. These hoops are not too difficult, but they give rise to 11,000 employment tribunal claims every year. Tip number 8, negotiate your package. Your employer must pay your statutory and contractual rights to accrued holiday pay, to notice pay or notice, and to statutory redundancy pay. Many employers are more generous than this. There may be a redundancy policy. You may be able to use your knowledge of what other leavers have been paid to negotiate a better package. If your employer asks you to sign a compromise agreement, there must be an extra payment to persuade you to waive your right to go to court or tribunal. You may want to negotiate not just more pay, but a reference, outplacement, extended health or life insurance, or a longer period to exercise your share options. In the end, you want the peace of mind of knowing that you've got the best package you can, short of litigation. If you don't ask, you don't get. Tip number 9 is take legal advice. You may want to litigate for a variety of reasons. You need to know whether you have a good legal claim and what this is worth. Specialist employment solicitors advise on this, as well as negotiating compromise agreements, tax, and whether any restrictive covenants in your contract are still valid. Tip number 10 is to be tenacious. Tenacity is rewarded. Job hunting is not easy. To be successful, you need a professional approach. You may have a lot to learn about selling yourself. If you're not confident in interviews, we can give you interview coaching with a realistic practice interview for the job you want. It can make a big difference. Whatever your path to a new job, my experience with lots of leavers suggests that you're likely to look back and be glad that you were made redundant. I hope your new job is more satisfying and your new employer more appreciative. Try to treat your job search as an adventure. Stay positive and good luck.